I'm about to tell you sounds impossible, and that's exactly why the system didn't see it coming. The central bank called it impossible, yet you did it, and now someone official has taken notice because you refuse to play by their rules. The world's most powerful and secretive people have always believed banks were their safest hiding place, a place where their dark deals and illegal actions could be buried forever, while ordinary people stayed unaware. Over time, this turned into a global underground business where high-profile individuals quietly used common people's accounts without their knowledge, storing evidence of crimes they never wanted traced back to them. Banks helped, silence was bought, and everyone thought the game was untouchable. Until one mistake happened. One piece of evidence ended up in the wrong account. A common person saw it, took it, disappeared, and flipped the entire power structure upside down. That single move proved that the system isn't invincible, that intelligence beats authority, and that courage can scare even the most protected institutions. Imagine what that means. Banks exposed, states panicking, and people realizing that power only exists because others believe in it. If this story hits you, pause for 1 second, hit the like button, subscribe to help us reach 5,000 subscribers, and comment Mr. Ledger below to show you're locked in, because this channel is about mindset, awareness, and realizing that limits only exist for those who accept them. For decades, people believed that the financial system was untouchable, a fortress so secure that no individual could ever breach its walls. Experts, economists, and even central banks themselves would declare it impossible to disrupt. Every rule was designed to protect the privileged, the elite, and the influential, making the ordinary person feel powerless. The sense of awe mixed with fear created a belief that nothing could ever change, and that those who dared question the system were destined to fail. But what if the impossible wasn't really impossible? History has shown that systems, no matter how entrenched, crumble when someone sees the cracks others refuse to acknowledge. Every great change begins with a spark. Someone who refuses to accept limitations, who questions the unquestionable. And that spark, though invisible to many, holds the potential to reshape everything. Imagine the courage it takes to step into this untouchable arena. The rules were written to intimidate, to control, and to protect hidden crimes. Yet, here was someone who defied all expectations, quietly entering a world that was supposed to be inaccessible, and exposing the reality that no fortress, no matter how secure, is truly impenetrable. Powerful institutions thrive on secrecy, control, and the illusion of invincibility. They fear the truth not because it is dangerous in itself, but because truth erodes authority. The moment someone exposes their hidden operations, the foundations of their control begin to shake. This fear drives extreme measures to maintain power, creating a world where deception is not just tolerated, it is institutionalized. The elite know that once secrets are revealed, their influence over people and resources can be questioned. Banks, governments, and high-profile organizations rely on maintaining an image of perfection. When an ordinary individual uncovers evidence that challenges this image, it terrifies those at the top. This is why institutions resist transparency. They are more afraid of being exposed than of failing ethically. History is full of examples: whistleblowers, rogue journalists, or ordinary citizens who revealed uncomfortable truths have been vilified, silenced, or ignored. Yet their revelations changed everything. The fear is not in losing power. It's in the unraveling of the narrative carefully constructed to keep everyone else obedient and unaware. Beneath the visible world of commerce and banking exists an invisible economy, operating in shadows. This hidden economy is where secrets, favors, and illicit dealings intersect, invisible to the public eye. It is a world where influence is currency, and the ordinary person unknowingly becomes a pawn in a game they cannot even see. In this hidden economy, powerful individuals deposit not just money, but secrets, evidence of wrongdoing, corruption, or unethical behavior. It is a marketplace where discretion is the most valuable commodity, and ordinary citizens are kept blind to what is happening in their own accounts. Most people cannot imagine the extent of manipulation occurring quietly behind doors labeled secure and confidential. The reality is unsettling. This economy fuels itself on the ignorance of the masses and the complicity of those who control access. When someone uncovers even a fragment of this truth, they wield a power that institutions themselves fear. Suddenly, what was hidden is no longer untouchable. Secrecy is not just a tool. It has become a global industry. Banks, financial institutions, and elite networks monetize discretion, transforming it into a business that spans continents. The more hidden and exclusive the information, the more valuable it becomes, creating a cycle where privacy is sold to the highest bidder while accountability is deliberately avoided. This business thrives on fear and control. VIPs, politicians, and wealthy individuals invest heavily to keep their actions invisible. They assume that their wealth guarantees immunity and that common people will never discover the truth. Yet, the irony is that this very system, built to hide dark deeds, contains the vulnerabilities that make exposure possible. Across the globe, this secretive economy influences governments, corporations, and society itself. It operates like an invisible engine that drives inequality, injustice, and corruption. And the moment one person steps in to disrupt it, the entire facade begins to crack. Ordinary citizens are often kept in the dark, told what to think and shown only what they are allowed to see. From complex banking rules to hidden financial transactions, the system is deliberately opaque. The design is simple. Knowledge equals power, and power is reserved for the few. Yet, the truth has a way of surfacing. One ordinary person, often overlooked and underestimated, can discover the very secrets that the elite thought were untouchable. Their knowledge becomes a form of empowerment, a weapon against corruption, and a means to challenge a world designed to exclude them. Think about it. All this time, billions of people lived unaware that their personal accounts could carry pieces of someone else's dark secrets. The realization that ordinary individuals have the potential to change everything is both inspiring and terrifying to those in power. The greatest error of the powerful is arrogance. They assume that ordinary people are predictable, compliant, and incapable of independent thought. They fail to anticipate the courage and intelligence of someone willing to challenge the rules they wrote to protect themselves. This mistake, underestimating the unassuming individual, is what allows disruption to occur. While institutions fortify walls, encrypt records, and maintain secrecy, one ordinary person can exploit a flaw, seize evidence, and hold the system accountable in ways no one predicted. History repeatedly shows this pattern. Empires, corporations, and institutions fall not because they are weak, but because they misjudge the resilience and ingenuity of those they deem insignificant. In this story, the mistake they never saw coming became a turning point that changed everything. Imagine an everyday bank account, something mundane, something you and I deal with every day. Now imagine that this ordinary account carries within it a secret that can shake the foundations of power. What was invisible suddenly becomes unstoppable. It only takes one piece of evidence, one extraordinary truth, to rewrite the narrative. The ordinary person holding this account becomes more than a citizen. They become a catalyst, a disruptor, someone whose mere existence threatens to expose corruption, deceit, and manipulation at the highest levels. This is not just theory. Real-world examples exist where small actions, seemingly insignificant, have unveiled massive criminal networks or corrupt systems. One account, one revelation, can illuminate a dark world previously hidden from sight. There comes a moment in every story of defiance where the impossible suddenly feels achievable. For years, the rules and authorities dictated what could and could not be done. But then a spark ignites change. That moment, when fear is replaced by courage, is transformative. It is the point at which an ordinary individual becomes extraordinary, stepping into a role that no one imagined. What seemed untouchable and unbreakable is revealed to be fragile, and the realization that truth can overpower secrecy empowers not just the individual, but the wider world. In this pivotal moment, the narrative shifts. Institutions that once loomed like giants are now vulnerable. The impossible is no longer a myth. It has been made real through vision, courage, and relentless determination. Rules exist to control, to shape behavior, and to maintain order, but they also preserve the privileges of those who enforce them. When someone refuses to play by their rules, chaos, uncertainty, and fear ripple through the system. Breaking free from these constraints is not reckless. It is revolutionary. It requires courage to ignore warnings, sidestep authority, and redefine the parameters of possibility. The very act of non-compliance is a statement. The system is not invincible, and you are not powerless. When the ordinary defies the elite, it sends a message that power is not absolute. The ripple effect of this defiance challenges norms, exposes hidden truths, and shifts the balance of influence in ways that fear cannot contain. Authority notices disruption because it threatens the structure they rely upon. When someone acts outside their control, using knowledge and courage as weapons, it signals a shift that cannot be ignored. The elite are forced to recognize a new player in the game, someone who wields influence without their consent. This recognition is both frightening and enlightening. It validates the power of one person and highlights the vulnerability of those who believe themselves untouchable. Suddenly, the rules are not enforced unilaterally. The individual becomes a variable the system cannot fully predict. Authority's attention is often the first acknowledgement that change is possible. When those at the top react, it confirms that the ordinary person has achieved something monumental, altering the dynamics of control forever. Systems built on control thrive on fear, fear of exposure, fear of failure, fear of rebellion. It is the invisible glue that keeps people obedient and secrets protected. Yet, fear is also the weakest link. It is what breaks systems from within when challenged. When someone steps in with knowledge that destabilizes these foundations, fear spreads like wildfire. Suddenly, the controllers become anxious, defensive, and irrational. The very system status may impress, but awareness empowers. One person armed with knowledge can outweigh the influence of 1,000 titles. Institutions, banks, and elites may boast power, but they are only as secure as the secrecy they guard. Awareness illuminates vulnerabilities and opens opportunities that status alone cannot access. It turns ordinary individuals into agents of change, capable of influencing decisions, uncovering truth, and holding the mighty accountable. Knowledge, when wielded effectively, becomes a form of wealth far more potent than money. Throughout history, awareness has toppled empires, exposed corruption, and rewritten narratives. Status may intimidate, but understanding, the deep, strategic, courageous understanding, creates real, lasting power. Every society has a narrative carefully curated by those in control. Disrupting it requires courage, clarity, and persistence. One person, armed with truth, can destabilize assumptions, challenge authority, and force a reevaluation of what everyone thought was immutable. The disruption is both dramatic and subtle. It may start quietly, with a single revelation, a single act of defiance, yet it grows, spreading awareness like a wildfire that cannot be contained. Suddenly, what seemed secure is exposed, and what was invisible becomes undeniable. This is the essence of change. One individual with insight and courage can rewrite the story for millions, proving that influence is not reserved for the elite, but available to anyone willing to act. Truth is more than just honesty. It is the ultimate weapon, the most powerful leverage one can possess. Unlike money, influence, or status, truth cannot be fabricated, stolen, or destroyed. It exists independently, ready to expose corruption and empower those who hold it. When leveraged effectively, truth can topple institutions, force accountability, and protect the innocent. It transforms ordinary individuals into formidable players, capable of negotiating, blackmailing, or demanding justice in ways that mere wealth or power could never achieve. The ultimate lesson is simple. No matter how entrenched the elite believe they are, truth always has the upper hand. The system may bend, resist, or fight, but the undeniable power of reality cannot be denied or defeated. What you accomplished is not destruction. It is revelation. The system was never unbreakable. It was simply hidden, protected by fear and secrecy. By uncovering the truth, you did not destroy. It revealed the fragility of the very structures that claimed invincibility. Exposure is transformative. It shifts power, forces accountability, and reminds the world that no one is untouchable. Your actions empower ordinary people, proving that courage, intelligence, and determination can challenge even the most formidable institutions. In the end, you did not break the system. You awakened it. The world now sees what was previously invisible, and with that awareness comes the possibility of justice, fairness, and the ultimate triumph of truth over deception. Every empire built on lies fears the moment the truth claws its way into the light. For decades, these institutions strutted around like untouchable giants, laughing at those who dared question them. But the truth doesn't negotiate. It doesn't bow. It erupts. And when someone exposes their hidden crimes, the empire of lies quivers. They built their power on fear, manipulation, and secrecy, believing no one could penetrate their walls. But they underestimated one thing: a single fearless individual willing to confront the darkness without hesitation. This tremor, small at first, grows into a quake that can shake even the most fortified structures. Now, the very institutions that thought themselves invincible are forced to reckon with reality. Every hidden transaction, every dark secret, every unspoken crime suddenly becomes a liability, and the arrogance that once protected them now accelerates their downfall. Power is often mistaken for titles, money, or influence, but the most dangerous power lies in the hands of those who appear ordinary. A single account, a single piece of evidence can wield more force than entire systems combined. And when that power is embraced, the elite start to panic. The irony is brutal. Those they deemed powerless become the ones shaping their fate. One ordinary individual operating in the shadows can force confessions, demand reparations, and manipulate the very people who once dictated the rules. The tables have turned, and there is no going back. History favors the bold. Those who claim to be untouchable are rarely prepared for the quiet fury of a determined mind. In the world of hidden economies and secret dealings, ordinary hands have proven to be the deadliest weapon of all. The very fear they imposed on the masses now binds them. Every shadowed corner of their empire hides a vulnerability, a crack that was invisible until someone daring exposed it. Panic spreads because fear is contagious, and the elite suddenly realize they are trapped by their own design. They built systems to control, to dominate, to intimidate, and yet those chains are now self-imposed. Every misdeed, every dark secret, every corner of corruption becomes a leash, and one individual, armed with truth, pulls relentlessly, dragging the mighty down to face accountability. This is the cruel justice of the system. The instruments of power that once oppressed become instruments of exposure, and the elite, for all their influence, are left shackled by the very fear they thought controlled others. For years, silence protected the guilty. It hid them from scrutiny, shielded their misdeeds, and allowed corruption to fester. But now, silence is dangerous. Every whisper, every concealed fact now carries the weight of exposure. There is no hiding, no delaying, no turning back. The ordinary individual who dared to act has rewritten the rules. Silence, once their ally, is now their enemy. The banks, institutions, and so-called untouchables must answer for the darkness they cultivated, because the moment truth speaks, it cannot be silenced. It's a reckoning, unfiltered and unstoppable. The choice to ignore it is gone, and the world watches as power shifts from the corrupt to the courageous. Every system has one, no matter how fortified. Every fortress has a weak point, every elite network a vulnerability. And what they thought unassailable, their secret dealings, their untouchable accounts, is precisely where their downfall begins. One ordinary person, one courageous act, and suddenly the facade crumbles. What was hidden in plain sight is now weaponized. The elite scramble to patch gaps that cannot be closed, to rewrite rules that cannot contain the truth. The system's Achilles heel has been exposed, and it is devastating. This is more than disruption. It's a revelation. Those who believe themselves untouchable now realize they are painfully, terrifyingly mortal. And the moment has come to face consequences that were once unimaginable. Control is an illusion. The more tightly the elite grip power, the more brittle their empire becomes. And when someone refuses to play by their rules, chaos becomes inevitable. What was orderly on the surface explodes from underneath, shaking institutions to their core. They believed they were untouchable because rules favored them, because fear protected them. But true power does not obey rules. It creates them. And when rules are ignored or bent by the courageous, chaos is unleashed. It's not just disruption. It's a revolution confined within a single account. The elite have no defense against the unrelenting force of truth and courage combined. Chaos is now their reality, and it cannot be contained. Evidence is more than proof. It is a weapon sharper than any sword. One piece, one account, one revelation can destabilize the most secure networks and intimidate the most powerful players. The mighty can manipulate money, influence, and resources, but they cannot erase the truth once it is exposed. What was once hidden now becomes leverage. Threats, extortion, negotiation, all gain unprecedented potency when truth is in the hands of someone who refuses to be intimidated. This is not crime. This is justice wielded with precision and courage. The ordinary have never had this kind of power before. Now, a single person, armed with undeniable evidence, holds the capacity to dictate terms, topple reputations, and force accountability in a world that thought they were untouchable. The untouchables are not immune. They are vulnerable. Every decision, every misdeed, every secret transaction carries consequences. And now, with evidence in the hands of someone fearless, the reckoning begins. It is swift, unrelenting, and merciless. Those who believe themselves above the law, beyond judgment, are confronted with the truth they spent years hiding. Panic replaces confidence, secrecy fails to protect, and arrogance crumbles in the face of undeniable reality. This is justice in its rawest form. The untouchables are finally accountable, and no title, money, or influence can shield them from the consequences that are now unavoidable. Never underestimate the power of an ordinary mind. Intelligence, courage, and strategic thinking can topple giants, expose secrets, and rewrite the rules of power. The ordinary person becomes extraordinary not through wealth, influence, or status, but through action and insight. This story proves it. One person, invisible to the system, holding one piece of evidence, can challenge billion-dollar empires and powerful institutions. Their impact reverberates through corridors of power, shaking confidence, disrupting authority, and demanding accountability. History favors those who act. The ordinary, when equipped with knowledge and courage, has the capacity to change the world in ways that the elite never imagined. The world has entered a new era, one where silence and secrecy no longer guarantee protection. Every action has consequences, and every hidden misdeed can be exposed. Accountability is no longer optional. It is inevitable. Institutions that once operated with impunity are now vulnerable. The rules of the game have changed, and the ordinary individual holds the power to demand justice, enforce transparency, and challenge corruption at every level. This is the age where courage trumps influence, truth trumps secrecy, and ordinary people redefine the balance of power. The untouchable are no longer beyond reach, and the era of accountability has officially begun. For years, the powerful believed their walls were impenetrable, that their wealth and influence could withstand any challenge. But walls built on fear and deception are fragile. They shatter the moment truth strikes. One ordinary individual, armed with knowledge, has become the hammer that cracks the foundation. Every hidden transaction, every secret account, every cover-up now faces exposure. The elite scramble, desperately patching cracks. But the damage is already done. Power, once taken for granted, is slipping through their fingers. This is not a drill. It's a warning. The era where institutions ruled unchallenged is over. Walls can be rebuilt, but the fear of exposure remains permanent, haunting every decision and destabilizing every empire. It sounds impossible. One individual standing against a global network of secrecy, deceit, and corruption. And yet, that is exactly what is happening. Where billions of dollars, thousands of employees, and layers of authority once failed, courage and insight now succeed. The army of lies has no immunity. Every false narrative, every fabricated report, every hidden agenda is powerless when confronted with undeniable truth. One ordinary person becomes the catalyst that dismantles mountains of deception, proving that moral courage outweighs resources. It is both terrifying and exhilarating. Terrifying for the corrupt, exhilarating for those who understand that one mind, one account, one piece of evidence can ignite a revolution the world cannot ignore. No matter how sophisticated their systems, the powerful live in fear. Fear is their constant companion. Fear of discovery, fear of accountability, fear of losing everything they built on lies. And fear, more than any law or regulation, is their Achilles heel. Once this fear is weaponized, it becomes unstoppable. A single act of exposure can unravel years of manipulation, turning confidence into chaos and arrogance into desperation. The elite were never untouchable. They were only insulated by the ignorance of the masses. The lesson is brutal. Power built on secrecy is temporary. When exposure becomes inevitable, the most powerful institutions crumble, not because they are weak, but because they underestimated the courage of one determined individual. In the hidden world of influence and corruption, secrets are the currency of control. Those with knowledge can manipulate, intimidate, and dominate. But when the truth enters the equation, the game changes entirely. Truth is not just power. It is the ultimate weapon. One ordinary person holding evidence that no one else dares confront becomes a force larger than any empire. They wield leverage that money cannot buy, influence that status cannot grant, and courage that cannot be replicated. The scales of power tip in their favor instantly. This is the reality of the new era. Secrecy can no longer protect the guilty, lies can no longer defend the corrupt, and truth, uncompromising, undeniable truth, commands respect, fear, and change. For decades, the untouchable walked free, untouchable in name and in practice. But